It's just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Dr. Zachary Bentley, Dr. Kyle Hollis, and Jordan DiNola. They are the South Georgia Dental Management. Located in rural southern Georgia, Dr. Zachary L. Bentley and his team began with humble roots in 2014. One location quickly grew into 5, an expanding footprint sparked by a commitment to employing innovative technologies, supporting continuing education, and unwavering commitment to providing high-quality patient care. From 2014 to 2018, the original practices experienced unprecedented growth, including larger new facilities and state-of-the-art technology. In 2018, Dr. Bentley officially started South Georgia Dental Management. Since then, the organization has tripled in size and remained true to its roots, keeping the patient and the caregiver at the center of everything they do. Dr. Bentley was born and raised in Valdosta, Georgia. He graduated from Valdosta High School. After graduation, he moved to Statesboro to begin his college career. He graduated with honors from Georgia Southern University with a BS in biology and a minor in chem. While attending GSU, he was very busy with both college life and community involvement through being a member of Gamma Beta Phi Honor Society. My gosh, I'm sitting there thinking I could, your bios could be half the show. I'll jump over to Kyle. Dr. Kyle Hollis, DMD, FMIII, DICOI. What's the FMIII?
So that's I'm a fellow of the Mish Implant Institute.
Oh, so am I, and I didn't even know it was called that. Of course, when I got my fellowship at the Mission, so remember the greatest oral maxillofacial radiology invention is when they put an R on one side of the pano and an L on the other. So I'm sure your fellowship in the Mission Institute is a lot more better than mine. I still think that's the greatest radiology invention. I had my pano 2 years, and they had a software upgrade. And the next thing you know, there's an R on one side, the L on the other, and all the patients like, is that my right side? And I'm like, this thing is amazing. Now I use the CareStream CBCT, and I swear when I look at those CBCTs, I feel like I'm looking at the Hubble Space Telescope at some nebula out in the middle of the universe. And then there's Jordan DiNola. He joined South Georgia Dental Management after serving as a director of operations for DaVita Inc., a Fortune 500 healthcare company. Dating back to his time as a Marine officer, Jordan has a history of developing high-performance teams in challenging operational environments. And talking about operational environments, I was looking at notes this morning, and it's like, what strange times we live in. The United States real estate housing market is up 17% this year, even though the Fed shows inflation only at 2%. The CPI basket of goods is really a distortion of reality. 30% of discretionary income spent this year was free money from the Fed's quantitative easing. And now we have 8 million job openings going unfilled because when you're getting all these stimulus checks, and you took some time off, it's hard to get back on. And I can see that firsthand. I lectured from 1990 to 2020, the pandemic. I mean, for 30 years, I lived in airports. I lived in airplanes like a cockroach 32 to 64 times a year. And it took a damn pandemic to get me off the road. And shit, I'm not getting back on the road. I'm getting all these invitationals to, we're back. And it's like, dude, after 30 years, I'm done. And I think it looks like about 15% of the workers are done. On Dental Town, all these dentists are saying it's hard to find an assistant, a receptionist, hygienist. Are these the strangest times you've ever lived through?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll jump in. We're young enough in our career to not know any better for the most part, but it's been absolute crazy times. And then bouncing back, we're definitely having all the staffing issues that everybody else is, including with doctors and associates as well.
So did you, and then Jordan, you joined right in time for the pandemic. Could your timing have been any worse?
Yeah, it's funny, and I'm sure Kyle's going to talk about this later on, but, when I joined, it seemed like if we weren't looking for PP&E all hours of the day, the other thing we were doing is trying to figure out how we were going to remap our entire patient experience. And Kyle jumped right in, and we stood up a clinical advisory board kind of overnight. And initially that was really just to help, us write our protocols for COVID. And then since then, it's kind of grown into a whole nother, whole part of our company and what we do on the day to day. But it was wild in the beginning. Probably one of the most bizarre, chapters in my life for sure. Even just serving overseas, it was definitely as crazy and as strenuous as anything we've ever done. But we got through it. We came out stronger, thankfully.
I think it took a pandemic to get me off the road, and it also took a pandemic to completely turn the image of DSOs. They were, when I got out of dental school, there's always been a bad guy. In 1987, when I graduated, it was capitation, then it was HMOs, and, it's always something that they don't like. And DSOs were, if you were an old guy and you were looking for liquidity and you wanted to sell a big office, it was great news. I mean, that's how Orthodontic Centers of America started. They were the first one in Georgia. And it was Gasper Lazarus who realized that you could sell an orthodontic practice if it was like under $1 million. But if you had built up some $3, $4, or $5 million practice, it was illiquid. And he started buying all those illiquids. But the younger dentists didn't like it. But during the pandemic, I noticed when people realized, my gosh, there's safety in numbers. And gosh, the DSOs. We'll look at the facts on Dentaltown. For the whole 20 years we've had Dentaltown, there's always been about 1,000 dental offices for sale in the classified ads and about 4,000 jobs posted. And immediately when the pandemic broke out, those 4,000 jobs posted fell to 1,000, and the 1,000 offices for sale doubled to 2,000. And I just ran in and podcasted so many people who just said, I'm wearing too many hats, man. This pandemic, I want to be part of a group. So I think the safety in numbers is going to be a huge tailwind. Have you noticed that for your company?
Yeah, absolutely. So when the pandemic first hit, it was actually great timing to have Jordan join the team, not only just to help Kyle and I continue to keep the company running, but it was also a time that we actually had the time to dive in deeper than we ever have, office by office, to peel back the every layer of every office to get a better understanding of how it's running, why it's running, and where we can become more efficient. So once we got past the PPE crisis and the fear factor, a couple of weeks in, once we could take a somewhat of a breather, we could actually start diving into the practice. So I actually have really enjoyed that aspect of that. That's been a very positive note for us. But yes, it's been the safety in numbers. We grew together as a team. Kyle, you can speak on this a lot. That with the clinical advisory board developing, we've got so much positive feedback from all the doctors and team members as well. Everybody felt safe, and the doctors felt safe, but also secure, knowing that we were working in the backgrounds to keep everybody protected and keep the company going.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm sorry, Howard. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to add to what Zack said, and essentially going to the safety numbers thing, I think the pandemic taught us just how easily we can be isolated, and then how uncomfortable a lot of us are with that. And so having the group like we do and being led by doctors the way we are, we were able to keep everybody in contact with each other, everybody to be able to share opinions and give advice, and to feel like we were really like part of a team through this whole thing. And everybody wasn't individually out on their own, especially some of our younger docs. We were able to like kind of continue to guide them and through this whole pandemic, and continue to provide patient care and come out stronger than what we went in.
So when I read your on LinkedIn, it says South Georgia Dental Management is a privately owned dental services organization that provides unparalleled support to its network of dentists, partners throughout the Southeast. We provide a suite of operational, administrative, and financial services that enable our partners to focus exclusively on delivering high-quality patient care. Our primary focus is to partner with and support dentists that provide patients with the highest level of clinical care and respect. South Georgia Dental Management has a proven track record of empowering our partner dentists and their respective practices to unlock hidden potential and financial success without risk of burnout. I've always thought that, all I've seen, well, first we got to take the term DSO. I don't even like the term DSO because it doesn't make sense. You start out as an individual solo practice, and I was 24 when I started mine, like 100 days out of dental school, but I was professionally isolated and bored, so I hired my first associate just because it would be more like dental school. It'd be more fun. I was too dumb to get a 60-year-old dentist that could have taught me a bunch of stuff. I got someone actually the same age as me, but it was much more fun. And then when they decide they're going to go to a second location, there's a lot of value in that because I've seen so many. It's so obvious in any market that's say 150 to 200,000 people. A dentist is on the south side, and he realizes that Facebook and Google have sucked all the advertising dollars out of television and radio and billboard. So they sit there and think, well, hell, I'm going to get another location. So it's gone from solo practice to group practice to group practice, two location. And by the time they go north, south, east, west, they can support one layer of management, so they can have someone, like Jordan, who can have a legal department, a HR department, a marketing department, so this individual dentist doesn't have to wear so many hats. And then you look at the fact that the price of a billboard in that small town on the big highway or radio TV spots, if it was radio television advertising rates hitting an all-time low that made Clear Choice explode with implants because they could do 30-minute infomercials all day long in all their markets for like $200 an hour or something, and it'd get one case, and of course that's $25,000 an arch. But I always see whenever you have one layer of management and north, south, east, west, they just make bank. What I don't understand is when they sell to another layer of management, and then that top layer of management that buys them, they got to take another 14 to 17% off the top. And I'm like, dude, my labor and my lab and supplies isn't even 14 to 17%. And there's where I think it breaks down, doesn't make sense, and is why we don't see any of them publicly traded on the NASDAQ. But you're still at that one layer of management. How long do you think you can keep one layer of management before that doesn't work?
Yeah, absolutely. Jordan, you want to jump in on that?
Yeah. So, right now we're still very much in the growth phase. I think we're positioned to be able to, and I think really what you're saying in terms of layers of management is investors that are looking to kind of get a piece of eventual like long-term cash flows. Is that really what you're kind of alluding to, Howard, or is there something different?
Well, the one layer of management, like you got your diplomat at the Mission Institute. Just to get out of school and get good at one thing. I first got my FAGD, my MAGD, my diplomat, and the International Congress of Odontology Fellowship of the Mission Institute. And when you're focused on that, you don't really have time to figure out HR and marketing and advertising and legal and accounting. So you have those people, and if you can get big enough to where you can have a full-time person in HR. When I really exploded in my business when I finally had a full-time president, a full-time comptroller, a full-time marketing person, and all that. Then it just seems like you do a lot more sales, a lot more profitability. It's in the sweet zone. But when that second layer buys it, it adds that additional cost of like 17% off the top. And that was all the gains I see from that flat layer management. So it's just kind of gone.
Yeah. Yeah. So and it's great points. So I think for us, first off, we're doctor owned primarily. So our partners in our company, we have about 30 dentists, and about 90% of them are actual equity owners in the company. So we're primarily a dentist owned organization. So when we have in the future, at some point, we probably will bring on other investors. So as shareholders, our partners get a say in who we bring on. It's not like it's an inevitability. We get a vote in who we would partner with eventually. And that could be another, company that is in dentistry, or it could just be another investor, right? That would help us continue to grow. So, I don't think it's necessarily a given that we would have in that scenario where we would be kind of burdened with additional overhead. We take pride in running lean. We do that right now, and I think we do that well. And it's definitely part of our philosophy as we go forward. We're not necessarily going to go with whoever the highest bidder is, right? If we bring on future investors, because we know we've seen this play out in the industry in multiple other scenarios, and we do also we got to protect what's best for the organization long term. So I think we'll be able to scale with our current framework now, and not have to bring on additional higher level corporate overhead at each turn. So but that's something that thankfully, like, all of our doctors are going to have a say in, right? That's not something that I would be making a decision in a vacuum, for sure.
Yeah, so, Howard, I'd like to add in on that. As we grow, we've seen several other companies do it every which way with call centers, centralized billing. We've seen a lot of mistakes, and we're definitely trying to learn and grow smartly. In my opinion, we're not positioning this company for to be acquired by a larger DSO. It would be another private equity company that would be either a minority or majority partner, like-minded, so that we can grow together.
And do you think I graduated in 1980, and the 80-82 recession was the most brutal I ever saw. It was 20.5% interest rates, inflation, and unemployment was double digits. Then I graduated in 87, about 133 days before Black Monday. Then we had the Y2K meltdown. We had Lehman's Day breakdown. We're obviously... business cycles is just a fact of life. Schumpeter got a Nobel Prize in economics for business cycles. It looks like we're obviously sometime soon we'll be going in a downward cycle, a deleveraging. So you leverage up with all this private equity borrowed money. What is that going to look like when they leverage down and everything has to be cash flowing positive, because you're not going to have just unlimited free money that you can just throw at any problem until eventually you figure out a business model that's profitable? What do you think this deleveraging will look like in the American DSO market?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe we just saw a good portion of that. We just went through the pandemic, and you're seeing all the DSOs that were leveraged at 5, 6, even 7 times are the ones that are closing and going out of business. There's a good many of those that are, for the most part, over leveraged and not managed properly. We do the exact opposite. We're not over leveraged, and we're going to be around for the long haul, cash flow positive, and staying true to our roots.
So tell me more about that. You have me drooling out of curiosity.
So one thing that we do is when we're acquiring a practice, we have different leverage ratios against the EBITDA. And so essentially when you're leveraging, we try to keep ours low. Ours is, we're running 3% or 3 times, excuse me. And so then we'll leverage debt, we'll leverage equity, and we'll leverage our own capital. And so we break it up that way to minimize our risk. And then that's also a big selling point for partners that come on. They then have a substantial amount of Class A shares, the same shares I have in our company.
So your buying practices at 3 times EBITDA?
No, I think go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah. So our overall, we try to stay pretty disciplined in terms of our overall equity structure. And so what we do is we keep our debt to earnings ratio right around 3 to 3.25. So, simple math, right? If we had $1 million of post-corporate EBITDA in a year, we wouldn't be able to keep anything more than 3.25 million in long-term debt. When we're going in and looking at potentially partnering with an office, we structure the deal whereas, we're bringing our company, putting cash on the table. We will have the opportunity to draw on additional debt through our lenders. And then, when we partner, we're also looking for the dentist to really believe in our equity returns. And part of the enterprise value of that dental office will match it with equity shares. And like what Zack was talking about is, we're all on the same level of Class A shares, right? Zack has Class A shares, Kyle does. I took money out of my bank account. I purchased Class A shares in the company. And I think that's also something that's a little bit unique about us is, Howard, I'm sure you've probably heard maybe some of the horror stories with other large DSOs where, a dentist comes in and joins and all of a sudden they're buried with a lower level of shares and everyone else is getting a bite of the apple before they do. And all of a sudden when it comes to their turn, it's something a lot less than what they had hoped for.
So your goal is a debt to equity ratio of 2.5 to 3. Is that what you said?
It's right around 3.25.
3.25. And
yeah.
And
that's
actually
that's debt to earnings.
Oh, not debt to equity, but
Correct.
debt to earnings.
Correct.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm glad
yeah.
I know I'm getting old. I'm still traumatized. Last Sunday, I was at one of my son's house, and my 5-year-old granddaughter, I could hear her ask her mom, "Is Grandpa dead or is he sleeping?" And I thought, holy moly, that is so it's not debt to equity ratio. That's your debt to earnings ratio. And
that's right.
And so what do you think? There's a lot of people that are I'll name another DSO. In my backyard, MB2 is a big one, and they buy a lot of their associates buy in as a partner. Of course, that's great to have skin in the game. I mean, 200 years since Adam Smith, it's obviously that what's special about capitalism is you having skin in the game, your own farm, your own ranch. You don't have, both Russia and China, when China did the Great Leap Forward and Mao Zedong nationalized all the farms, that caused more death and starvation than the damn wars they were in. It was just horrible famine. So having skin in the game is everything, and I love that part of it. Associates buying in, having skin in the game. But what about the argument about, well, you're a minority partner, so if I own 49% of it, my dental office or less, I don't make any decisions. How do you address that?
I think, and sorry, really quick to hop in, we're a little bit different. My understanding, correct me if I'm off, Howard, on this, is MB2 is a JV model, right? So they come in and partner with each office individually. But that dentist doesn't own part of, kind of MB2 as a whole. They basically become a minority partner within their own dental office, right? It's a joint venture at the office level. Is that right?
Well, that's what it sounds like to me.
That's my understanding, right? So where we're different is when you come in and we partner with you, you're getting shares, common share or preferred shares in the overall company, right? So if we have a little bit of a downslide in one individual office, as a dental partner with us, you're not going to get hurt as bad as if you're in a JV model, right? Because you still have shares in the overall organization as a whole, which is, I think, a little bit different in that regard. Zack and Kyle, I don't know if you want to shed any light on that.
I'll kind of jump in, from the clinical autonomy perspective of that, Howard, is, we're not, even though we have an, back office and an executive team, they're not coming in and making decisions that are, taking the direction of each individual practice or clinical care from the doctors. And that's one of the main reasons we developed this clinical advisory board, because the board itself is made up of all of our doctors in the organization, with a few leaders. And we ensure that everybody still has their own clinical autonomy, makes their own decisions day to day, but we help guide the entire organization to keep a certain standard of care. But there's, even being a minority partner from a financial perspective, and Jordan will probably elaborate on this, as we go, but from a financial perspective, being a minority partner in this organization still is probably more financially beneficial than being a majority partner in several other types of, dental management or dental practice ownership or partnership.
Well, I love your website. Their website is SGA Dental. SGAdental.com. That sounds for South Georgia Dental Management.com. And it says, our vision is simple yet profound. Each day we aim to provide elevated standards of patient care to the highest quality, renewed efficiency in an environment where doctors can focus solely on their craft, full ownership, enabling long-lasting and fruitful partnerships, deep innovation and resources, acumen and support to help practices expand and enhance financial well-being, expert guidance through advanced technology, ongoing learning, and sharing of best practices. And it says their values are partnership. Our mission is to help you thrive by providing the resources, best practices, and guidance to take your practice to new heights, clinical autonomy, innovation. I think that's amazing. When you look at dentists that come to you, and like say, I saw a complete 180 on the DSO model. Rick Workman, founder of Heartland, said that he couldn't even return all the phone calls of the dentist calling and saying, please buy me, I need help. So obviously, even those musk oxen do it. You know how they form a circle and they put all the babies in the middle? I just think that's the most romantic picture. And it reminds me of even like on the Titanic where the women and children get off first and us male army ants have to go down with the ship or face the demons that are attacking. What demons in the dental marketplace do you think dentists are coming to you and saying, yeah, I want to be part of that musk ox circle? I see safety in numbers. What threats do you think they're looking at that make them want to have help with a team approach from guys like you?
Yeah, we see that on a daily basis. Basically, Kyle and I created this organization to fight that. There's several things that we wanted to do. We wanted to reach. We started out wanting to reach rural Georgia, which we did. We were also very successful in rural Georgia, and then create a group. We wanted to grow the group, grow the organization. We knew all the bad hype about DSO, and so we wanted to do it differently. We wanted to do it the right way. How are we going to do that? We're going to stay true to ourselves and our profession, good quality dentistry, be nice, love your patients, and then grow smartly. What we didn't want to do is be at retirement age and not be able to retire. And unfortunately, there are a lot of dentists out there that are in that same boat. And so what we're seeing now, we're seeing all aspects. We're seeing the doctors that are ready to retire and have done it smartly. We're seeing the doctors that haven't paid attention to their financial well-being and are being forced to retire. But then our model, our average dentist is 42 years old. And so we're not just buying or partnering with the retirement age doctors. We will do that, and we can create models to make their life easier, and to also grow their practice. So organic growth is extremely important in our organization, and we've become very good at it. But to answer your question about the threats, obviously the pandemic, that what they're also, these doctors, what they're also seeing is that they can't focus on the business, on delivering excellent patient care, marketing, HR, the whole 9 yards. And as DSOs become more prevalent, and there are some good ones out there doing it the right way, everybody's more open, and they're definitely more educated on them. So when you have a spinoff of all the negativity and you bring something positive and you allow them to be financially secure, invested in an organization that's going to have great returns for them and allows them to just focus on dentistry, then and when that light bulb goes off, it's a no-brainer for them.
You know, I still think the thing that concerns me at my age, I mean, going back to my granddaughter's quote last Sunday, is Grandpa sleeping or is he dead? And, you know, when you have your 4 kids and they're dependent on you and they live on you, and now they're raised and they're independent, they own their own homes, and now they've made 6 dependents on them, you know, as you start to go out, you're concerned about the sovereign profession of dentistry, because what I'm concerned about is my 6 grandchildren. I'm a selfish bastard that only cares about my 6 grandchildren, and if they go to the dentist, I want them to go to a dentist. And you know, some of the greatest companies in the world, like say Hewlett Packard, you know, when they started, when William Hewlett and David Packard started Hewlett Packard, they were both PhD engineers, and they knew what the hell they were doing. Henry Ford was an actual engineer, and I just really want dentists to own these dental companies. I don't want, if my grandchildren go to a dentist and it's owned by some Wall Street broker who's yelling at the dental office to cut costs and increase earnings, and we got to make our numbers, or if it's owned by a dental insurance company that says, well, we bid this contract at this amount of money, and you can't do crowns or inlays or onlays, you got to do composites or whatever. I mean, I want my granddaughter to go to a dentist that has skin in the game and can call the shots and has clinical autonomy. And most of the states agree. I mean, when you look at the 50 states in the United States, almost all of them had passed laws that said, no, you can't start a dental office if you're not a dentist. And I happen to live in the only state I'm aware of, Arizona, that's not even a requirement. And I understand free enterprise, but it's one thing when you make toys or Kleenex or bottled water or whatever, but I still think dentistry is a sacred, sovereign profession where it's got to be led by people who are damn dentists. I mean, take something like pediatric dentists. I never thought I'd live long enough to see a controversy in pediatric dentistry, but man, they got a full-fledged war going on between silver diamine fluoride and taking them to the ER and doing pulpotomies and chrome cell crowns. And I'm looking at my friends on Dentaltown that are arguing about this, and they're all really smart dentists that have a decade of experience under their belt, and they can't figure this out. So how could some MBA at Wall Street or some insurance executive lawyer figure this out when the pediatric dentists can't even get their hands around this argument?
So I want to jump in a little bit on that real quick, guys. So from my perspective, I agree with you, Howard, 100%. And you know, to this point, and hopefully continuing in the future, we function from a clinical perspective and how the companies run like a large group more than any kind of management organization. Our doctors practice, completely how they want to, use the materials and everything that they want to clinically. So there's not like somebody coming from up top and saying, hey, you have to do this, or you can't do this comp care, you can't do this way or whatnot. And you know as well as I do that all dentists, we all think we either do something the right way or we do it the wrong way, and we are never all going to agree on from a clinical standpoint or how everything's run. So being together as a group, I feel like we can all, when we all have inputs and we all have that input together, we can guide the profession and our company, in the right direction. When we're all isolated in single practices, we don't get together and we don't support the profession. That you get focused, like you were saying. You're worried about marketing, you're worrying about payroll, you're worrying about your clinical care. You work all day, you work these extra hours. You're not necessarily pushing the profession forward. And if we've seen anything, insurance companies and everybody lobbying, they're beating us out, every day. So if we want to protect the profession, I feel like we have to find ways to get together, and we have to find ways to, financially be able to do something like that. And us as an organization, our doctors have a great lifestyle. They're financially secure. And because of that, we're able to get them together and have this conversation so that we can make sure we continue to do the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely, Howard. I'd like to jump in too, just real quick. There's a couple aspects to that. One thing that I've said my entire career, I want to be the first one in, and the last one in and the first one out. And that's, as far as a doctor goes, that's the way it should be. I should be the last one in, the first one out. Everything else is taken care of. When you build your team properly, and you have the trust in them, and you give them the ability to do so, then that's when dentistry becomes fun. The answer, though, to the statement that you're making is those doctors have partnered with the wrong group if they're having the MBAs calling them and squeezing them. I'm the only one calling any doctors in my organization. Our Dr. Hollis, Jordan has plenty of conversations with them, but he's not having clinical conversations with them. When we partner with a doctor, we don't change their software. We don't change their supplies. We don't change their labs. We partner with them because they're already successful. And so we don't need to change that. We just need to enhance it. We definitely have open conversations on, have you tried this product? Or we're partnered with Henry Schein and this is our formulary. What do you like about it? When Kyle and I created our formulary, we sat down with four of our doctors and said, all right, what products do you like? We got, three sets of each product, each different brand, put them on the formulary, went to fight, get our best prices, and that's our formulary. We're keeping it simple and delivering good quality care, good quality products, and using good labs.
So,
hey, Howard.
Yes.
No, and then the last thing I'll add is to your, using your analogy, because I got 3 young kids and the exact same thing, right? When I go into any healthcare provider, but I bet you that the dentist that is sitting down and treating your granddaughter might do a little bit better job if in the back of their mind they're not worrying about payroll, they're not worrying about administering FMLA, they're not worried about their collections and who's keeping an eye on their AR and whether or not the water bill got paid and all this other stuff. I mean, the way our model is built is we keep the doctor, our dentist, and the patient at the center of the wheel. And then there's, obviously all the spokes around the wheel. I try to work in the periphery and cover all those spokes in the wheel. So that way the dentist can come in and do what they do best. Because, I have an MBA, right? And I have some understanding on how we can, make the business run well. But I have never had a conversation with a doctor on, hey, you probably need to be doing a little bit more production tomorrow because you missed your goal today. Our doctors set their own goals. I've never had a conversation. I've never dictated a goal to anybody because I'm in no position to do so. I'm not a dentist. It's not what I went to school for, right?
So when you're getting your money to expand, your private equity is the Thurston Group, correct?
That's correct.
And they do a lot of things in dentistry. They're with U.S. Endo Partners. They're with U.S. Oral Surgery Management. There's Smiles Dental, Smiles Doctor, Pinnacle Dental. How is your relationship and with those guys, and how will they keep this dental-led dentists at the top and stay more as as your private banker, banking and financing relationship. Like, I mean, I bank at Chase Bank, and I've had lunch with Jamie Dimon 3 times, but he doesn't make any of my dental root canal calls. Love that guy, though. Just an unbelievable guy. But so how do you, well, first of all, talk about Thurston. They've obviously won the trust over US Endo Partners, Smile Doctors is ortho, you guys at South Georgia Dental Management. How did they get into so many dental spaces? And what are your thoughts about that group?
Yeah, absolutely. So Thurston Group it's been a great partnership. It started myself and Dana Fender. Dana Fender's the co-founder of Smile Doctors Orthodontics. Created that platform with Pat Haynes at Thurston Group. I was introduced to Pat back in 2017. Him and Dan Davis. Dan Davis is the managing partner and our acting CEO of South Georgia Dental Management. Dan and I basically took what Dr. Hollis and myself have created with Reedsville Family Dentistry, Claxton Family Dentistry, and then Dr. Nicole Yates at the time at Glenville Family Dentistry. That was our platform. I started working with Dan Davis for a year in the background, meeting with him, phone calls daily and weekly, growing, putting the vision together for the company and the organization and how we're going to grow. The first thing I told him was, we're going to do it the right way. We're going to keep clinical autonomy for the doctors. You help me grow the business. You stay out of the way in the clinic. And they have a lot of respect for the doctors. The reason they're in so many dental spaces and have been so successful in the dental industry is because of their respect for the clinician. And then the second part of that is they believe the clinician should have equity, Class A shares, the same shares that I have, the same shares that Thurston has in each of these platforms is also in the doctor's hands. And that's what sets us apart. Dan has an hour commute and every morning and that's our time together. They're based out of Chicago. Pat Haynes lives right here in Richmond Hill, Georgia, which is where our headquarters is. And we strategize, we execute together. We have the vision and the pipeline, but clinically, they stay out of the way.
Yeah, I think one of the key things here, and one of the things that Pat Haynes, founder of Thurston, really believes in, and what attracted me to the company is, if you're thinking about it purely from, from a balance sheet standpoint, our doctors are our most important assets, and those assets have shoes. If we don't take a good job of taking care of our partners, they're going to go elsewhere, right? It's a very competitive landscape, like you talked about in the beginning of the conversation today. So, we spend most of our time, making sure that every decision is going to be the right decision, not only for the organization as a whole, but then also for all of our partners.
By the way, I thought Patrick was still in Chicago, so he moved to Georgia, or did he retire to Georgia, or is that where he's from?
He's been in Georgia for the last 20 years.
Wow.
So
well,
they're based out of Chicago, but he's a big fan of the Ford Plantation here in Richmond Hill, Georgia. It's a golf course community.
Well, tell him I'm dying to have him come on the show. I mean, he's because he's seeing this at such a macro level. I mean, it's the future of financing, and I give you another example why. The government is we live in a democracy, so they lick their finger and stick their finger up in the air, and whichever the way the wind's blowing is where they're going to go. And when times are good, they get mad at all the banks because they don't loan money to certain poor zip codes where they've had a lot of bad luck and they don't want to sell banking, insurance, financing, things like that. So the free enterprise says, okay, we'll go in there and we'll do that. We'll go balls to the wall in there, but we'll have to charge a higher interest rate. Then they pass all these usury laws and says, no, you can't do that. That's against the law. And but they do it anyway. And then every time the bubble pops and then the economy starts going downhill, now it's called subprime lending. And what idiots were loaning to poor people and the subprime lending. So then you start, making that all negative. So then they start going to in Phoenix, Arizona. I mean, every other block has some payday thing where you can get a loan against your coming paycheck, and that's like 25 or 30% of your whole paycheck. And the government just can't make up their mind. Do you want us to loan to poor people, and we'll have to charge higher interest rates? And I mean, it's just crazy. And then they did it after 2008 Lehman's Day. They did all this Frank Dodd amendments telling the banks all these things they can't do. So now all banking is moving to fintech. It's all moving to Silicon Valley. And Jamie Dimon writes a yearly paper, and he just came out with a 69-page paper. And they said, look, all these regulations are going to kill banks. And if you want to get into banking, you're going to have to get into fintech. And right now, in the expansion of dental offices, it's probably going to start moving rapidly away from the old school where it was the big banks like Wells Fargo and Bank of America and all these people. And you're going to start having a lot of private equity money expansion, mainly just because the government's not on their back. And it would be very fun and rewarding to interview Patrick J. Haynes III about how he sees the macro changing from I'm gonna finance my solo practice from Bank of America versus now it's gonna be private equity. And when I got out of school, you're not gonna believe this, but when I got out of school, you know how all those dental practices were financed? I would come in and work for you. I would prove my salt for a year, and then you would do an owner carry. You'd say, okay, I'm going to sell this for $1 at 10% interest for 10 years. And the doctor actually got to sell his practice 3 times. That was my next question I'm going to ask you. He'd own the land and building and then the business, and he'd sell the dental practice for $1, but he would finance it to this buying dentist at 10% interest for 10 years. So that adds up. The interest on that's another $1. And then in real estate, your only variable is having a tenant. Now you've had a tenant in there for 10 years. He doesn't want to move. And then you'd sell him the land and building. And then if doc financed that, you get interest. So, I mean, he had this long-term income stream. But what was also cool about it is when a patient came in and the young dentist who bought it said, my God, I think I messed up. I got a patient, George Bob, and he's madder than hell and says he's going to shoot me. The old dentist say, it's all right. Let me call him. I've known this guy for 30 years. And then that dentist lived in the same small town. So every time he was about saying, oh, yeah, you got to go to that nude guy. You know, I got so old I can't see straight. And he's the best dentist. Everybody had skin in the game. And then when it went to Bank of America, Wells Fargo, I started seeing a lot of practices where they'd sell a practice collecting $1.4 million to some kid straight out of dental school, and he didn't have any of the skills, and he'd run that thing down to $800,000 the first year, and a lot of them went under. And now it's a private equity. And again, I think it's going to private equity. Not basically, they're just running from the government. I mean, isn't that what people have been doing for 5,000 years? Is just trying to get as far away they can from the government. So tell Patrick I would love to have him come on the show and talk about why he's so interested in all these dental spaces. Why? But answer the real estate question. So when you have a pot of cash from private equity and you can get this money, do you want the land and building, or do you just want to rent retail space?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was a big portion of in a hot topic. So what Pat he's in this space for a reason. He's very good at it. I'll definitely make the connection for you. And so the other niche that he saw that he was personally creating is the need for a dental real estate REIT. So he's created the National Dental Healthcare REIT, which is a separate company. For the most part, South Georgia Dental Management does not want to personally have the finances tied up in the real estate. But what we did to take care of that issue and to also take care of the doctors and also create another revenue stream and equity stream for them is created the REIT, which has been phenomenal.
And what is that called again? The National Dental Healthcare REIT?
Yes, sir.
And that is partnering with dental providers who own their own real estate to minimize risk while maximizing liquidity and long-term growth. Dental providers have the unique opportunity to gain liquidity for their properties and own shares in a larger investment vehicle that yields a quarterly dividend, a better way to build your future. And so are you guys have, my gosh, I'm trying to think how many locations you have.
16.
16 locations. In how many years?
Formally May of 2018, so 3 years.
3 years. You've gone to 16 locations, and in those 16 locations, how many of them do you own land and building?
Well, that's a good question. So South Georgia doesn't personally own any of it. The Reit now owns, I would guess, 7 or 8 of them. No, probably 10 of them.
And what determines whether you own the land and building or you rent?
So basically, and so once again, South Georgia doesn't own any of it. If the doctor we're partnering with wants to sell his real estate as well, then we turn him right in and introduce him to the team with the Reit, and they negotiate, they purchase, we write a lease for them that they're in tune with, and that it's good for us as tenants, and it's good for the Reit, and it's good for the selling doctor.
Wow, that is these are certainly exciting times. So, Southwest Airlines, I remember when they got going, and I lived in Kansas, and the governor of Kansas wanted Southwest to go to Kansas so bad, they said, look, we'll buy you the $50 million 737. And Herb Kelleher, who passed away January of last year, just a role model of so many, he says, the plane's not my cost. He goes, it's labor my cost, and labor and flight attendants and ticket agencies and all that kind of stuff. He goes, fuel is even a bigger cost in his airplane. He says that's not the reason I'm not there. I'm expanding what's smart. And you're in Georgia, and south of Georgia is Florida. My God, you could stay in Georgia and Florida and have 1,000 locations before you even thought about Alabama, Tennessee, or South Carolina. I mean, if you took the Herb Kelleher march, I mean, he was in the Southwest, even when he was only in the Southwest, even when he was about a quarter of the entire market, because he just served well where he was at and just expanded what was naturally. You're all in Georgia. How long do you think you'll stay in Georgia, and how many locations would you have to have in Georgia before you even thought about going to crazy-ass Florida?
So that's a good question. That's a hot topic here. We're actually under LOI in South Carolina and in North Carolina.
So you went north. You went north away from Florida. Just say it. Just say it. You went away from Florida. I'm in Arizona. We call ourselves braggingly that we're the Florida of the West. And by the way, do you know why Florida is the most craziest state? Seriously, in all seriousness,
Let me know.
They did something. What I love the most is when people have competition and they're transparent. And Florida did the right thing, and they made all their criminal records transparent and easy to access. So if you're looking for a crazy story or a crazy robbery or crazy everything, you go to many states and you can't drill down and find out all the data. You can't find out why everybody's in their jails or prison. But it was the transparency of Florida that now everybody can see all the crazy details of their crazy state, whereas most of the other states are opaque. But anyway, so why did you go north to South Carolina and North Carolina instead of south to Florida?
Well, we're definitely entertaining North Florida, probably Orlando North, just to keep it in our wheelhouse. It's commonly referred to as just an extension of South Georgia. So we're not opposed to Florida. We are right on the South Carolina line, so it makes sense to go right into South Carolina. The main thing that we want is strong partners. We're not buying fixer-uppers for the most part. We can write scenarios as long as we have the lead doctor to go in there. For the most part, like I said earlier, our average age of our doctors is 42 years old. So we're going in and partnering with already successful practices. For the most part, we're strong enough in our organizational is big enough. Our leadership and our team with Jordan has grown that we can now access and help run practices outside of our exact touch point. So we're ready to expand into other states. We do like South Carolina, North Carolina is starting to come around. So we're definitely entertaining that as well. But for the most part, the recruiting aspect and making sure that we can keep a doctor pipeline for our growth, for adding second doctors, we got to make that accessible, and we got to try to make it easier than more difficult. And Florida historically has been a difficult state to get a license in.
Right. And Arizona, our governor, you can't find any person. We're all failed. We all have flaws. Everybody's a complicated person. But on the one hand, he did something I didn't like, which he allowed anybody to buy a dental office, even if they weren't a dentist. I didn't agree with that, but I did agree and was very proud when he passed a law that said if you're licensed to practice anything, dentistry, medicine, law, anything, you can move to Arizona and we take your license. And to show you how crazy it was done because the hospitals, it was easier to recruit nurses out of Ireland and move them to a new country than it was to get a nurse from California to come over here and all the boards. So Arizona is ground zero for DSOs, and it's going to be a very long-term trend because when a dentist or an endodontist or a specialist decides they're going to move, they got to make that decision in their mind. They got to wait till their kids are in college. They got to be there for the weather. But I cannot tell you how many gazillion older dentists I've talked to that now their retirement plan is Arizona. And it's helping them with specialists. But I want to get back to specifics. So you're not doing any de novo start from scratch startups. You're only doing acquisition of existing doctors. And did you say your average dentist was 47 years old?
Our average dentist is 42 years old, but
42.
we definitely do de novos. We have 5 successful de novos under our belts right now. A lot of times, what we'll do is we like the backfill. So one thing we did with Dr. Hollis's original office in Claxton, Georgia, he outgrew his 5-op office, probably 13, 14, 1,500 square foot. He built himself a new facility, 8 operatories, surgery suite, the whole 9 yards. Now we have a lease on another dental office. So we backfilled it. So we started seeing pediatrics in that office. We started a pediatric office. Once we proved the concept, then we'll build them a new building. So it utilizes the real estate that we already have under, leased out.
And when you do a de novo, are they all the same name? Are you going to build a brand like Aspen? Every office is called Aspen. But when you look at Heartland, if they buy your name and it's Hinky Dinky Dental, they leave it there. What are your thoughts on one name versus the local name?
Yeah, so we do not brand. We have added second locations when we've outgrown facilities and things like that. So some of those may have a continuation of the same name, but it's essentially just an extension of the same practice, same doctors. So we do not brand. And when we started de novo, for the most part, it's family dentistry. It's something to represent the town or the community that we're in.
Yeah, we were against branding, but now we might take Hinky Dinky Dental into consideration.
Well, it's Kroger. No one realizes how big Kroger is because, like in Kansas, there are Dillons. Out here, there are Fry's. But if you added up the second largest grocery store behind Walmart in every one of those states, it's all Kroger. I mean, Kroger's a monster company, and most everyone I ever talked to doesn't even know what Kroger is. I imagine Aspen will have an advantage by branding one name when times are good, but then if something goes wrong in a dang dental office, like say pediatric dentistry, someone has a sedation and it doesn't turn out well, live by the sword, die by the sword. I mean, I think it really helps in marketing when everything's good news, but it's kind of really bad when there's bad news. What made you decide not to brand one name like South Georgia Dental Management versus the Hinky Dinky Dental? Isn't there a Hinky Dinky Dental grocery store? Is it one of their? There is a Kroger grocery store with a Hinky. I'll Google it. Kroger. But what made you think that?
So one thing that I would add about the branding is back to the ownership, and we want the doctors. We don't want the doctors to feel branded. We want the doctors to feel like they have ownership in something that is theirs. And so that's one main reason that we do that. It would be easier to market, and a lot of things would be easier if we were branded. But I think it for me, it's just not true to what dentistry really is, and what I grew up knowing. And so that's how I feel about it. But, one thing that you said resonates with me earlier, about DSOs, where DSOs are going wrong it's the quality of dentists that they're hiring. You got to have quality dentists. You got to have a good personality, and you got to be nice to your patients.
By the way, you're not going to believe this, but I'm going to tell you. You know what 3 of the grocery store chains are named? Hinky Dinky, they have 50 locations. Piggly Wiggly and Tom Thumb. That's what happens when grocers are allowed to name their own company. Hinky Dinky, Piggly Wiggly, and Tom Thumb are all grocery store chains in the United States. Can you believe that Hinky Dinky made it to 50 locations? But
that's impressive.
So when you say a good dentist, this is Dentistry Uncensored. I'm gonna this one's gonna get you in all kinds of trouble, but I mean, I have to admit, I got 2 dental schools in my backyard. I got Midwestern in Glendale and AT Still. And in the past, I wanted to do the right thing and provide them a job straight out of school. But God dang, when you've only done 2 root canals and 3 of them were on a plastic extracted tooth, and I mean, who the hell wants to hire a kid straight out of school? So when you're saying that you're doing acquisitions with strong doctors, well, if they're on average 42 years old and you get out of school, let's just say you're 25 years old. I mean, you're talking about some docs that have 15, 20 years experience. What advice, again, knowledge has no value unless it's transferable. My whole goal with media, lecturing, books, tapes, a podcast is to transfer knowledge from really smart older guys like you down to our replacements. And so you got 6,500 kids that are going to graduate from dental schools in a month, and they were in a pandemic. A lot of them didn't even get close to doing their requirements on a real live patient. So when you say strong doctors, you're talking about doctors that graduated 5, 10, 15 years ago. You're not talking about any kid that just walked out of dental school, are you?
Well, and I'll jump in on that.
Kyle.
So yes and no. So, we have a great group of very experienced, successful doctors, and a lot of those come through our acquisitions, but we do hire new graduates. But what we're developing is we're leveraging that experience from those great doctors to then mentor and train these new sets of new grads. And so we're able, and with the organization like it is, and our capacity, we're able to actually train them and put them through a new what we're calling our doctor development program, which is getting them in with different doctors within our organization, letting them see, hey, this is how an office actually runs. This is what these staff members actually do. This is what the job title is. And then kind of getting them in and seeing what the real world's like, what a procedure actually, how a procedure actually goes with a real patient. And then, training them and easing them and mentoring them into their profession. So they're not out there just hitting the ground running, not knowing what they're doing. So we're developing this strong doctors. So if they're not, if these new grads, they're not experienced and everything coming out of school, but we're going to develop them into those strong doctors so they can, we can have this pool of just great, strong doctors that feed off of each other, help each other, and advise and move our organization forward.
So, what advice would you give those 6,500 graduates? They're going to come out next month, and they're not going to tell you this honestly, but they're scared. They've been in a protective school since kindergarten, all the way through grammar school, high school, college, and now they're about to come out of that protective shell into this real brutal jungle. And they're going to do it during the end of a pandemic and possibly the beginning of the next economic deleveraging for a while, which, by the way, I don't say that in a scaremongering point of way because I don't care. I lived through it. I mean, I lived through 1980. I opened up my dental office 133 days before Black Monday. I lived through Y2K. I lived through, so it's not fear mongering. It's just a part of life. I mean, if you go fishing, sometimes you're going to catch a big channel cat and it's going to taste real good, and other times you're not even going to get a bite. But right now they're coming out in probably a very most challenging time, a pandemic, an economic contraction. What advice would you have for them, and do you have any opportunities for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So some are scared, some don't even know to be scared yet. Kyle and I have both been there, and it wasn't so far ago that we don't remember those days. I remember my first days and my mentor. I remember going chairside, not knowing how to talk to a patient, not knowing how to explain that they need a crown, being scared to explain that they needed a crown because I was worried about the money or a root canal. And then that's all before executing that. I used to not get an hour of sleep before root canals the next day. I would have so much anxiety about doing it right, making sure it was quality, make sure I didn't perf the tooth. And so I remember those days, and so does Dr. Hollis, and that's why we've created this program. And so what we can do is, because we can resonate with this, with the young doctors at that level, like I remember that yesterday, and I want to take that away from them if they're having those. And so we're going to be there to help coach them and guide them and teach them along the way so that they don't have to go through it the way I did. I wasn't necessarily supported at that level with those procedures that I wanted to do. I wanted to expand my range of what I was able to deliver in these rural communities, and Dr. Hollis as well. I chose and ran with root canals. Dr. Hollis chose surgery. And so we have experienced doctors on the team that can walk down whichever path that the doctor wants to go with the skill sets that they want to develop. We have a spot for every doctor at every production level, at every skill set throughout the organization. It's Dr. Hollis's job and my job to make sure we place those doctors in the right office so that they can be successful.
Well said. My advice to anybody, I mean, I started in the restaurants. My dad, when I was 10 years old, he bought a Sonic drive-in franchise. Do they have Sonic drive-ins down in Georgia?
Yeah, we have them.
Oh, yes.
I basically lived in one. I was either at school, starting at 10 years old, every day after school. Of course, I walked to where my dad's Sonic was, because you want to go home and eat leftovers from last night, or go eat a foot-long chili cheese dog and a chocolate malt and onion rings and tater tots. That's where I got all my nutritional habits. But restaurants are brutal. I mean, they have a 40 to 60% failure rate in the first couple of years. But a restaurant has to have one thing. Like, you go to that one Mexican restaurant as opposed to the other restaurants, because maybe you like their chips and salsa, bean dip, something. You got to have one thing. A McDonald's, they had the Big Mac. If it was Friday night and you were a Catholic and couldn't eat fish, they came out with a fish sandwich in St. Louis. They have that one thing. And everybody, and that's why specialists, on average, make $320,000 a year, whereas a GP only makes $197,000, because specialists, they specialize, they got really good at one thing, and that is $130,000 value to it. And if you look at the highest paid specialties, oral surgery is $448,000. Perio's $330,000, endo's $307,000. I mean, dentistry started as getting people out of pain. And Pierre Fichard was the first one that said, let's make dentistry a specialty of medicine. Let's stop being barber surgeons. Let's become a specialty of medicine. And that's why oral surgeons and periodontists are not specialists in dentistry. They're subspecialties of dentistry, which is a specialty in medicine. And if you can't get someone out of pain, if when someone comes in, if you can't extract their tooth or do a root canal, I'm sorry, you're not a real doctor, and there's not a lot of value and need for that. You got to get good at something. And now we have 12 specialties. If you kids want to get good at something, I say stay in school and specialize. But there are 12 specialties: oral surgery, endo, perio, pediatric, orthodontics, prosthodontics, dental anesthesiology, oral facial pain, oral med, oral path, oral radiology, dental public health, and sometimes your good thing is that you're the low cost provider. That you're Aspen's doing that. They're going where they ain't. They're going to where most of the people have Medicaid, and most dentists all aggregate to wherever people live in houses that are $60,000 a year, medium household income or higher. The dentists that do low cost dentistry, most of them don't even know what they're trying to do. They're still trying to place a rubber dam and place composites instead of just saying, okay, look, you got an amalgam. You can place it for $1 in the last 38 years. You're on Medicare, Medicaid. Why the hell are you doing an Ivoclar posterior composite cured with a fancy light? I mean, so get good at something. Just get good at something. And that's my advice. If you have a restaurant, you need to create a restaurant that has one dish where people are saying, oh man, let's go there and get their, what is it? The bloomin' onion at the Outback. I mean, I just start going into withdrawal for a bloomin' onion and whatever that sauce is. And I forget all the other things. If I go to, what's that, Italian restaurant that has the bread rolls, the breadsticks?
Olive Garden.
Oh yeah, if I go to Olive Garden, it's only for the breadsticks, and when I'm done eating the breadsticks, I can't even eat my entree. I just have to say, yeah, just put it in a to-go box because I'm going to eat like 47 breadsticks before I'm done. But you young kids, you get good at one thing first. Maybe you like clear liners, it's Invisalign. Maybe you want to go place implants. Maybe you like root canals, but my gosh. And if you don't know what you're interested in or what you want to get good at, well, I'll tell you right now, learn how to pull a damn tooth or do a root canal when a person's in pain, because 8.5% of this country's emergency room visits are odontogenic in order. In fact, if I was going to start my own DSO, it would be across the street or in the parking lot of every emergency room in America. In fact, what I always did is I went around to those emergency rooms regularly myself in person, and just like the endodontist would come and do to me. In fact, when your specialist sends you cakes and cookies, whatever, you ought to just take the name off, immediately jump in your car and go to the emergency room, give them the same stuff and just say, hey, you guys can remove a brain tumor, you can do a bypass, you can fix a broken leg, but you cannot fix a tooth. I don't know why your culture is that, but hey, if you ever want to clear out the 8.5% that are just a toothache, here's my card. It's got my cell phone number. And I also do that regularly. Every time I go to a grocery store or Walgreens or a CVS, I always go stop by the pharmacist. I always press the flesh. I always shake his hand. I always say, hey, if someone comes in and they're asking what's better for a toothache, is it ibuprofen? Is it Aleve? Is it aspirin? Is it Oragel? Just pull out my card and say, in fact, I gave my, the new business card I do is I just open up my iPhone, then I open up my V card, and then I ask the pharmacist or emergency room person or whatever to type in their number, send them my V card. All they got to do is open it, save it, and now I'm in theirs, and then they return it back to me. And I still to this day get pharmacists calling people that work in emergency rooms and saying, hey, I know it's Saturday, I know it's noon, it's whatever, we got a guy down here, he's all swollen up, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yes, I'm on it like a fireman. In fact, when I was little and I had my 4 boys, whenever I got that call to get them all involved, they all had a job. One was, Zack was the baby, so he'd stand out front with where the door was open, and Greg would get a napkin chain, and everybody had their task, and our whole excitement goal was, look, the Ferran family will be there before you get there. We're on our way now. Click. And sure enough, every time we were probably there for 5 or 10 minutes before they even pulled up. But so the young graduating class, look at the specialties: oral surgery, endo, perio, pediatric dentistry. I wouldn't wish pediatric dentistry on anyone. That's where I draw the line in the sand. I will go back to Sonic Drive-In the day I have to start going to pediatric dentistry school. God bless all the people that can do that. I don't know what went wrong in their childhood when they decided after dental school they just want to listen to screaming, yelling children all day the rest of their life. We got one of the best ones in the world in our backyard, Jeanette McLean, and she just loves it. I don't know. I would have to start drinking Listerine shots straight out of the bottle at 7 a.m. to get myself in the pediatric dentistry mode. But, man, just get good at one thing. And I can't believe we went over an hour. It was such an honor to talk to you guys. But I want you to go around, each one of you, and just give a pep talk. Just say something to the graduating class of 2021, graduating at the tail end of a pandemic and the beginning of an economic contraction, who doesn't even know what to do. Give them your best advice for a college.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead, Kyle. Go for it.
So I would say this: dentistry is definitely changing, but it's not changing for the worse. The best thing you can do when you graduate is find a good mentor. Like Howard said, learn something, learn how to get people out of pain. And, if you want to be successful in dentistry, there's only really 2 things you have to do: get people out of pain and be honest with them. Everything else is going to come. Things are going to happen. Stuff's not always going to go the way you want it to. And that's dentistry. And that's why it's called a practice. You're here to help people, and there's good and the bad. It's still a great profession. It still offers some of the best financial security and lifestyle of any profession out there. There's still a good chance for a lot of success. You just have to be a little bit open to maybe opportunities that you weren't initially open to. Don't be closed-minded on where you want to go. And live necessarily. Be a little bit more open, because sometimes those better opportunities are not exactly in the ideal place where you thought you wanted to live initially. But then they can provide you with the ability to live there comfortably later.
Yeah, that's well put, Kyle. This is Zack Bentley. The one thing I could go on and on about what we could say to the graduating class. I can speak on my experience. What I would look for is somebody that, like Kyle said, somebody that you can trust, a mentor. Don't get caught up on where you're going to be for 30 years. Get caught up on the best opportunity you have in front of you. Think outside the box. It might be with a larger group. And if that's something you're interested in, give us a call. Be careful with the doctor who's adding his first associate, who doesn't have the space, or he's going to slow down, or we're going to do some marketing. You want all those things already teed up so that you're going to be successful. And then find somebody that's going to help mentor you and grow with you in the direction that you want to grow. But most importantly, you got to deliver quality dentistry. You got to be nice to your patients and honest, like Kyle said, and you got to be willing to work. You got to show up. Jordan, maybe you could add in on what, the business side of it and the right opportunity.
Yeah, I feel pretty underqualified to give a dentist advice on anything clinical. I guess one thing I could say is, so I used to fly, Howard. I was a pilot in the Marine Corps, and
is that the helicopter
I
behind you?
Times, yeah, right behind me. That's it. And I think just through observation, I kind of can relate being a young pilot to being a young dentist when you're fresh out of flight school. And I think the only times I ever really got in trouble and really, put myself in a pickle is when I was moving too fast and not listening to my team when I was flying. So maybe that's something that could be relevant to a dentist. But then, the other thing is in terms of on the business side, I would say, we're here, like, I'm happy to have a conversation on anything business related. I think sometimes our young partners, they just kind of assume the worst. There's a lot of stigma out there about, DSOs in corporate dentistry, fill in the blank. And so I'm happy to have a conversation, whether you have interest in South Georgia Dental or just in about, what does a large group like us look like in any corner of the country, on how we do things and what it looks like, and how, the equity portion comes to life for our doctors and all those things. I'm happy to have that conversation. I'm on the South Georgia website, and I'd be more than willing to help out in any way I can, just to kind of shed some light on how the back office side works for any young graduate.
So if they want to reach you, is the best place to go to sgadental.com for South Georgia Dental, sgadental.com. And gentlemen, when I look at history, like say the two biggest red flags is when something's not transparent. Like all these people love Bitcoin. It's like, okay, well, tell me the owner. Oh, that's what makes it special. No, that's what makes it a fraud, you moron. No one knows who the hell owns it, and all the IP addresses are coming out of Russia, North Korea, and China and Iran. What's your next best idea? But for you guys to come on and bare your heart and soul and be transparent about everything speaks legends about you. And on behalf of my grandchildren who are wondering if I'm sleeping or dead in the chair, just keep all the management in the hands of dentists, of doctors of dental surgery, because when you're a dentist, it's hard to make the call. I couldn't even imagine making these clinical calls if you weren't even a dentist. That would be crazy. But thank you so much for giving me an hour of your life and sharing everything with my homies. It's been an honor to podcast you guys.
Thanks, Howard.
Thank you so much, Howard. We enjoyed it.
Thank you.